We're live. Welcome to the CSFL. Who you got? Weekly breakdown. We got the RHINOS here and your Commissioner DEESAINT holding it down. Let's take a look at these matchups and get into it right away. RHINOS, you take the lead.
What's going on? So, first off, this week has a great amount of games that I think are very interesting. I want to talk about a few of them, and I think I have time to go down almost every game. So, when I was looking at the who you got for this week, Gorillas and Cobras kick it off on a game that I think is going to be very, very interesting for one, because not too long ago, about last week, um, the Cobras scored like 58 points. 58 points against the Scorpions, and that's pretty impressive. But then the week after, last week that just passed, goose egg. So I'm just sitting here scratching my head. I'm like, how do you go from scoring 58 points to not scoring a point?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So this
Bradley
week,
McNamara.
yeah. McNamara is definitely a problem. We all knew about him and, his inconsistency. But this right here, this is a 58-point differential. How do you not score?
Well, you have to give some sort of the credit to the Piranhas, too. Piranhas came that game really well.
Right. But they played the Scorpions when they scored 58, and the Scorpions scored 42. So it was a close game, but 58 points and then scoring nothing the next week after just doesn't make it make sense. Make it make sense, Commish. So when I'm looking, I see that the Cobras seem to have a problem moving the ball, because they only had like 3 first downs compared to the Piranhas like 20 or something like that. Piranhas had 20 first downs, Cobras had 3.
Wow.
All game.
Dominated. Yeah, dominated. And they were on the road. Piranhas were at home, and the Piranhas are hungry and waiting for it and biting at it and want every little bit of it, and they're trying to get in the playoffs, and the Cobras are expected to get in the playoffs and expect to be in the playoffs, and that's the difference is the mentality. The mentality behind these two teams. You know what I mean? The lion is not the king because he's the biggest or the strongest. It's because of how he thinks, his mentality, right? So it's the same thing with the Cobras. The Cobras need to get it in gear and realize that their season's on the line and they could easily get bumped out because it's getting real competitive coming down the line, and Piranhas are biting at it. But let's give some of the Gorillas some love. Gorillas, they got a great team there, been running really good with Cedric Burley, but Ismail Pitts has really not been coming through for them, in my opinion. I don't think he's been able to distribute the ball. They've really been struggling. The 15th ranked total offense. Their defense is their highlight, 7th ranked, but also their 2 young pros, Vincent Berry and Andre Brooks. They have really been a disappointment this season. I don't think they're a disappointment in general. I think they still got a lot of potential, but man, did they really get exposed on some of these games, allowing multiple receivers and different games to get 200 yards. The Gorillas really need now to turn this around. There's just a little bit of hope left, but I'm pretty sure they got to win out to be 7-7. So, but we'll see how it goes.
All right. Yeah. Right.
Next game.
Yeah. That's right. But I wanted to say one more thing about the Cobras. Not only does he really need to really get on McNamara and find out if this is the quarterback you want running your offense, he really needs to figure out what his game plans are going to be, because not only did they only score 3 first downs all game, they only had 20 rushing yards against the Piranhas. Yeah. And the Piranhas had 219. That's it's too much. Something's not working. Something's not working. And McNamara only had like a sub 50 QBR rating for the game.
And a lot of that comes down to the game plan, because the game plans were completely different, offense and defense, in both of those games. And the opponent was different, and one was at home and one was on the road. They got shut out on the road, right? And they scored big at home with a great playbook call. So there's all that too.
Yeah,
But it's been 5 minutes now, and you said you wanted me to call you
all
all the
right.
time. There's
Yeah,
lots of teams to
that's
talk
right.
about. Okay, the
I could
next
go
game.
on this game forever, but
Hey,
we
it's
got to
no
keep it
worries. You
moving.
pick a team, and for each matchup, you do a team, and I'll do a team. Let's do it that way, and then it'll go by a little faster. So now the next is the Dragons and the Bears. Let's hear your thoughts on that.
All right, so Dragons and Bears. I'm looking for the Bears to pulling up an upset because it's like they're right on the edge of pulling up a major upset. And I think that if the Bears play their cards right, they could actually win this game. Now the Dragons are a formidable team this season. Um, I think they've played better, but for the most part, I think they've had a pretty decent run right now. They're winning some games. I think they're on like a 2-game win streak. But for the Bears, I think that Jimmy Caps is a really good quarterback, a really young quarterback. I think he can get it done in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
He had a good game last game. He had over 120, 125 QBR, 3 touchdowns, no INTs. That's always going to help.
Won by 1 point. Yeah, it was a great game.
Right.
Over the Gators.
But yeah, over the Gators. But the defense is really what I think will hold Bears down. They have a decent defense. It doesn't look great on paper, but I mean, actually, it doesn't really look great at all. But I mean, to give the Bears the benefit of the doubt, I think they still have the players to get it done. I just think that their game planning might be a problem because the way that they're winning games is not the greatest, and they're not winning consistently enough. So, like Haston had 6 tackles, Anderson had 6 tackles, Moore had 5. Like those are some productive numbers. They had a couple tackles for loss and 1 interception. But I think if they can step up their defense and find something that works for their defense, I think they can hold teams to lower scores and give Jimmy Caps enough time to win. So I think the Bears could sneak this one out.
Yeah, the Bears definitely have the potential to win. They're at home. The Bears look like they've completely changed the philosophy this season. They have the 15th ranked rushing defense and the number 1 passing defense, and it's usually opposite. They usually let up a lot of passing yards and stop the run. No one can really run the ball on this team, and that couldn't be more opposite this year. Multiple teams had 150 plus yard games on the ground, and the Bears can't seem to stop the run, but they have been getting in shootouts with teams, and that seems to be working for them, or at least seems to be the approach for them, because it wasn't working in the first half of the season, as I believe they went 0-4 to start the season. The Bears again are a 4-7 team that need to win out to even get to 7-7 to even have a chance to make it. They are already in the playoffs, in my opinion. The Dragons, they don't get enough attention. This has got to be the most underrated team in the entire league. The most overlooked team in the entire league. We talk about the Tigers more than we talk about the Dragons, in my opinion. The Dragons don't get enough love. They've been playing really well. Their running game is phenomenal. I don't care what that 11th rank says. Travis Stovall, yes, he's been a little inconsistent, but when he's rolling, he's red hot like their jersey. The Dragons are a really good offense, and they got a veteran quarterback, Eric Watson, and believe it or not, their defense is one of the best, if not the best, this season, and nobody's talking about it. Yeah, we could talk about the RHINOS defense. Yeah, we could talk about the Vipers defense. They're usually holding down 1 and 2, but it's always number 3 or number 2 or number 1 with the Dragons as well. They've also been bouncing in between there. Dragons are a really strong team, and I think they are going to make the playoffs, and I think that they're going to win this game, and I think they might even win out. But we'll see how this game goes. Let's move on to the next one.
Well, I want to say one thing about the Dragons. The Dragons, I don't think they are going to lose many games, but I don't know if they're going to win this one. They barely beat the Gorillas 10-13. Now, for a team like the Dragons, to barely beat the Gorillas, which not taking anything away from the Gorillas because they are a up-and-coming team, they can sneak wins. But I was thinking for the Dragons, I would have thought they would have won that game. And the fact that they had, Eric Watson had 45 QBR against the Gorillas. I can't see them taking the Bears out.
They struggled for sure. But Dragons, I that's it. I think the Dragons are gonna do better than we think, and no one talks about them. They don't get enough love. So, anyways, but you're right. They struggled against the Gorillas. Let's move on to the next game. Demons versus the Gators. This is definitely a highly anticipated one this week.
For sure, for sure. Now the Demons are dangerous any week. Any week they're dangerous, and they will beat you if you let them. You really have to play a perfect game against the Demons. Just talking about the team overall, they have great time of possession. They like to hold the ball. They can run the ball. They can definitely run the ball,
Definitely.
and they have some really key receivers in some good positions. So. It's just going against the Gators. I have so much confidence in the Gators because of the
Yeah.
way they built their franchise and team. I always think that they have a solid team year in, year out. They like I say, I always say that they have like a Swiss Army knife of a team because they literally have players for everything. They draft well and they trade well in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to the Gators, it's always hard for me to pick a side because these are two really, really good, strong teams. But for the Gators, it's just like, what is it? What is it that they're lacking that they can't get over the hump? They have
Mm.
great offensive weapons. They have a do or die quarterback that will pretty much do anything for a win, and they have a pretty solid defense. And they're 6-5 right now, floating 500. They lost 2 games. It's a little depressing for me to pick the Demons over the Gators. But I'm saying, like, just the way it looks right now, the Demons have a shot of stealing another one from the Gators. Depending on how the game turns out, because CJ Holiday is always a really, really deep threat weapon, and he will crush you if you let him. And he has complementary wide receivers that if you lock down Holiday, then you got Seth White, and you got who else? You got Lewis is a nice young receiver there. But I mean, he's got the weapons to win every game. It's just that do the Gators have the plan to stop him?
Yeah, they definitely got the personnel. Do they got the game plan? Is the next one. They were 6-3 and now find themselves 6-5 on a 2-game losing streak, coming down to the bottleneck, and it is time to panic if you are the Gators or Gators fans because the season is closing real quick and they're starting to go on a downward angle. We had the highest hopes and the hugest aspiration for the Gators at the beginning of the season, and now it's kind of gives you a little hum and ha every time you go against them because you know they got a methodical plan, you know they're really run really well, and you said it right, you nailed it. There's something stopping them from getting over the hump. It's like a beautiful car that's stuck in the sand. Why is it spinning out? What is it? It's called Thomas
Yeah,
Brown. That's what it is. It's Thomas Brown. Okay? Look at me. Where's the camera? Hey, look at me. It's Thomas Brown. Okay, I'm just joking. But seriously, though, if they had another quarterback in there in that cockpit, they have a phenomenal jet fighter of a plane, and they got Thomas Brown flying it. It doesn't know where the missile launch button is, or doesn't know. I don't know what it is. He plays really well, and then sometimes he doesn't throw a touchdown. Sometimes he costs them the game. I don't know. In my opinion, Thomas Brown, I've said it for seasons, 2 seasons now. This is the season that I thought last season I thought Thomas Brown was going to prove me wrong. He lost in the playoffs in the first round to the Werewolves 17-14, and he didn't throw a single touchdown in a playoff game. And I said, that's it. I'm turning on Thomas Brown until he proves me wrong. The Gators, though, the thing about them is they got an amazing team. They put up a lot of points. They're up there fourth in the league for points per game, and guess what? So are the Demons. They're up there fifth for points per game, and they're only off by like 0.5. They both score over 30 almost every game. They got very explosive plays. They're both one of the two most intelligent owners with the most methodical game plans. These guys know exactly what they want to do. They know exactly what they're going to do, and they just hope that that actually plays out on the field because both of these guys are great, great owners that come up with amazing game plans. Now, the real thing about the Demons, I could talk about the Demons forever. The Demons know exactly what they're doing. They're obviously second in the standings right now for a reason. They know what they're doing, so don't have to get too much intense talk about them. But the Gators, they're starting to fall off. and they really, really need to hold on if they plan to do something in the offseason here, because they, as of right now, could miss out on the playoffs if they don't start turning this around. And their schedule looks tough. They're playing the Demons. They're playing the Vipers, which they've never beat before. They're playing, I believe they're playing the Wildcats. They're playing a lot of tough teams, and they're not on an upward trend. I'm worried for the Gators. They need to turn this around. So
Well,
let's move on
in the
to the next
Gators
game.
defense, one second, in the Gators defense of Thomas Brown, okay, he hasn't had that many bad games. And Thomas Brown is starting to grow on me a little bit because he's a winner, man. He's a winner. He may not look pretty, but he's a winner. He will run and he will go head first for first downs. You know, he's aggressive. He had a 155.2 QBR against the Monsters, 261 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no INTs.
This is his fifth season, and if he doesn't make the playoffs this season, that means he's only made the playoffs 2 out of his 5 seasons, and he's lost both times in the first round, and miserably too. So when you got a star quarterback that you drafted first overall, first round quarterback that hasn't delivered in 5 seasons, when you got an all-star team like that, you could put Quincy Barnett in there. Where's Derek Albright? I'm telling you, they would do great on that team. The mobile thing is the issue. Anyways, we have to move on. It's already been 15 minutes, and we're on our 4th game now.
You may be right. You may be right.
I might Jason be.
Dodd,
what do I know?
Are holding him down. Jason Dodd, the strong safety's holding him down back there, man. He's just balling out.
Oh, yeah. He's got a great defense, man. Phenomenal defense, Gators. But so do the Demons. Anyways, that'll be a good game to watch out. We're 17 minutes in, and now we're on our 4th game. It's going to be a long video. You want to keep it short. Wolverines and Piranhas. This is a great matchup of 2 young, hungry owners. What's your thoughts on this one? Because I got lots to talk about for the Wolverines.
I don't know, man. It's really hard when it comes down to these teams. The Wolverines have a young squad that I think they need another season or 2 to really make an impact. Because Romolo, he's going to be able to do a lot of things that they've never seen before in that squad. So if they can find a way to wrap this team around Romolo and just give him the ball, I think they're going to have a great chance of success. Now, everybody knows how much I love me some TNT from Taylor and Turner. They're the quarterback and receiver, still a deadly combination, and they still are going to do a lot of damage in this league. I still think they need to just get it together and glue it together. William Taylor hasn't been playing bad. He's been mediocre at best. He's threw a couple picks here and there, but I mean, he still has everything that you need. Now he's got Romolo, so now it doesn't really need to rely on him that much. He can just hand it off to Romolo. So I think if the Wolverines can find something that works for their team and get Romolo the ball in a consistent manner, because they really can't rely too much on their receivers except Turner. But I mean, if they can get him the ball, they're going to have a great chance of winning some extra games. I can't say playoffs, but they have a chance to win some extra games. They're about 500 right now. Their defense is hanging on, but they're not really making any waves. But I think if they can just find a game plan and build that team around Romolo, they'll have a great chance to win some extra games.
Sports. It's in the game.
I agree with you. I think that they are doing really well. I really like what the Wolverines are doing. I think the Wolverines have been playing really great. I think they got a really good squad. And I thought the same thing at first, and I think a lot of people do, think that they need a couple more seasons or a season or 2. But honestly, they've been playing phenomenal very quickly, similar to the Monsters. The Wolverines have been playing above their grade and coming out with amazing game plans, and they drafted amazing, and they got some real stars on their team. They got Ty Ward, Duke Warner, they got Harvey, the outside linebacker that they got at the top of the second. Then now they got Johnny Romolo. They have to make the move now, in my opinion, while the young running back has still got juice in his legs. Because a lot of times, as we know, running backs, after they get 2, 3, 4 seasons in, start to lose that spark, start to lose that extra what they call those like extra energy plays, those extra effort plays. That's the word. Extra effort plays. And you'll know what I mean when you see a young running back in there compared to an old one. They just spin
Right.
more, they juke more, they try harder. They just jump, they just do things that they're just determined to get to the end zone. And Johnny Romolo's got that, and they need to take full advantage of it right now. The Wolverines, I brought up the game file because the Wolverines beat some really good opponents. They beat the Bears. They beat the Monsters. They beat the Wildcats. The Wolverines beat the Wildcats. They beat the Vipers. The Wolverines. And you know what I
Damn.
mean? And they've knocked out a lot of really good teams in the last few games of the season. They got Piranhas, Gorillas, Dragons, and Cobras. They could easily make a run here because I feel like they got through the hardest teams already, and they're 6-5 on a 3-game winning streak on the upward trend.
Right. Right.
Lots
I think it's all
lots of great
offense.
things.
It's all offense holding them down right now because the defense ain't looking that great. I mean, Smith, Jackson, Burke,
They
Rose.
actually are.
I mean,
They
this is a
actually,
collective, though.
mhm.
This is a collective group. The Piranhas have to play together. Offense and defense have to be clicking, or else I don't know if they're going to hold it up because they were really high in the offensive stats and they just dropped. That's scary, if you ask me. When you have
Well,
when you
they
have an
still got-
algorithm like that
Yeah.
that goes from second and first to fifth and seventh. I mean,
Well, they still have the
There's
number one
baseball.
rushing offense, and they had the number one rushing offense. We're talking about the Piranhas. We had the number.
Right.
They have the number one rushing offense pretty much for the entire season. They haven't really
Right.
had to share that with anybody. I believe they lost it to the RHINOS once, and then they got it back again. They were number one in total offense, then went to second, third, and now are fifth. But that's because a lot of teams are just lighting it up, and they're not off by much. They got 4,100 yards, and the top offense isn't far off. The Piranhas look amazing offensively. I can't believe they did the unthinkable. You gotta tip your hat off to Jay Bomber, the first ever player and head coach, soon to be owner. How he was able to replace Willie Burnside. That was
Amazing.
That was the Mount Rushmore of holes to replace the Grand Canyon of a hole, and they somehow got Isaac Cobb in there, Clint White in there, and Jay Bomber in there, and they're all running the ball, and now they got the number one rushing offense. This is looking phenomenal. Now their defense is also playing phenomenal. He got rid of who he didn't want, and he brought in who he did want. He is really happy with his defense, and they are playing fast football, and they got some phenomenal players out there. The Piranhas are no joke, and the head coach has got something to prove. Wolverines
I
are
just
good.
think they need a little.
It's what
They
it
need
is.
some more wide receiver weapons. I think Chauncey Preston's the only one really holding them down. I think personally, game to game. I think if they can add some extra receivers, hey,
Sure.
sky's the limit for the Piranhas.
Sure. So let's move on to the Werewolves and the Scorpions.
Now, the Scorpions are another team that worries me. The Scorpions, I think, look way better on paper than they actually play.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised at some of these outcomes of these games because I don't know what it is, but they cannot keep the ball in their hands. They've had a couple low possession games, 6 minutes compared to like 15 and 11. They've had a couple of bad games, couple of games that they should have won. There's a lot of things going on that they can remedy if they would just remedy it, if they would really just get on it. Because you can't win a game with only 4 first downs all game.
Mm-hmm.
Against the Wolverines, they only had 4 first downs all game, 86 rushing yards compared to 249. It's just lopsided stats that I don't know if they can climb out of. Now, if they can get Ingram into a system that he's used to, comfortable with, and that he can score with, I think they can turn it around. I just think it's a matter of game planning and just attention to detail that can really help these Scorpions out. Because a couple of seasons ago, I would have said the Scorpions are definitely in the mix to have deep playoffs runs and cause some trouble. Jackie Wilson is a perennial star, and he needs the ball just as much as Ingram needs to get him the ball. So I just think it's a matter of just game planning and fine tuning your team just to get them back on the hump. I mean, right now they're way below 500. They're not going to make the playoffs. So if I were them, I would definitely start planning for the draft right now, looking at holes that you need fixing, and getting on it with the off season, because off season can help you massively if you know how to work it. So you know what I'm saying, you just got to get out there and get these Scorpions back on track, because not too long ago they were on track. I would have said one of the top 5 teams in the league.
I absolutely agree with you. The Scorpions at the beginning of this season, if we did power rankings, would have been high for sure. Now the Scorpions are on a brand new race. They're on the race for the first overall draft pick, and they're racing with the Tigers, who are also have a similar record, 2-9. And guess what? They play each other next week, and that will officially be the game that no one wants to win. That will be the official game that no one wants to win. Let me repeat myself, because they want that first overall pick. And at this point, the season's gone. Jeannie Ingram, you just assume this has to be his last season. 14 seasons, 14 years. This has got to be the last year. I know we've been saying it now for like 3 seasons now, but it's got to be the last season for these veteran quarterbacks and these veteran tackles and stuff like this. You would think, right? But looking at this matchup, don't want to beat up the Scorpions too much, but the Werewolves are also similar. The Werewolves I would have put very high, and they were playing really well. Actually, they were 5-3, but have lost 2 games in a row now. They have high aspirations. I thought the Werewolves would do amazing this season, and they really have fallen off defensively and have let up a lot of points. When you look at their points, they started getting in shootouts really early, which I was shocked that a lot of people were scoring a lot of points against the Werewolves, but the Werewolves are also scoring a lot of points. So similar to the Bears, which they're rivals, maybe they're watching each other. Well, you know they're watching each other. They've completely changed their philosophy, completely. They were a very defensive run team that stops the run and runs the ball, and now they've completely flipped their scenario, and now they're 3rd in the league for points at 32 points per game. They're scoring a boatload of points, the Werewolves, but they're also letting up a boatload of points. So that's totally different from what Werewolf football that we're used to, and it's just their team may not be built for that kind of a change. It was a good try. I'm not saying that it's over. They could keep doing it. Maybe they could turn this around. I see them winning against the Scorpions. Maybe they can build off of that momentum and try to win out, because their season is far from over. They got the Piranhas and Gorillas and Dragons next, so they only have 2 teams with winning records in the next 4 games. They could definitely upset the Piranhas or Dragons, and I'm proud of the Werewolves for what they're doing, and you know what I mean. You gotta give credit to people when they try new things, when what they're doing isn't working. They're trying to find a way to win, and I respect that about them. It just might not have been the right way, but the season's still young. Their second turnovers, they turn the ball over like crazy, and they score a lot of points. It's just different than what we're used to seeing. But let's get on to the next game.
What do you think of Brian Miller? Do you think Brian Miller has what it takes? He's a 4-year vet now, and I think around this time, this is where quarterbacks need to separate themselves from starting the second string quarterback. And Brian Miller can play. He's got a huge arm. He's turned himself into a star. And the last game with the Wildcats, he only had an 88 QBR rating with 1 INT. But the other game, he did a little better than that. And, I'm saying, you can't win games when you have such great players and you're only making 85 yards rushing a game against teams that are putting up multiple hundreds of yards. So it all depends on who he's got in there. I think for this season, of course, he's got to stick with Miller. But I think if he can just right the ship, start doing what he was doing in the beginning of the season, I think they'll be okay.
For sure.
They're a strong team. And I would expect them to be top 5 right now. So it's crazy.
Brian Miller, funny stat about Brian Miller that nobody knows is that he was drafted the same draft as Thomas Brown and Corey Moore.
Wow.
The 3 of them were all in the same draft. And the thing is that Brian Miller has more playoff wins than Thomas Brown. He has 2, actually. One against the Gators, Thomas Brown, that he was drafted, and once against Corey Moore, the other quarterback that he was drafted in the same class was the Vipers. When the Vipers were the number 1 seed, the Werewolves beat them at the 8th seed and upset them on the road, and that was Brian Miller. So Brian Miller and the Werewolves are built for the playoffs. They're a run team, conservative offense that runs the ball and plays strong on defense. That just doesn't always accumulate a lot of wins in the regular season, but they're built for the playoffs. Corey Moore obviously wins that rivalry, as Corey Moore has tons of playoff wins and has been to 4 championship games.
Well, you can't say that the Werewolves don't have weapons. They have a great core of wide receivers. They got Antoine and Dwight. They can still get it done. They just got to do it, man.
They sure can. Now the Monsters and Blue Jays, or the Blue Jays, should I say, at the hosting the Monsters. The Blue Jays are on a 3-game losing streak now, and the Monsters got humbled last week with the Demons scoring quite a few points on them. What's your thoughts on this matchup?
The Monsters, I can't say anything bad about the Monsters right now. I'm honestly rooting for the Monsters. I've never seen a young owner in the team, get their team, struggle, but then finally start getting it. When you start getting it, when you start paying attention, and when you start really getting to know your players, it makes a whole world of difference. So I want to credit the Monsters for sticking to it. They're playing 500 ball right now, which isn't bad for the squad they have. All they got to do is just draft. Listen, the stats can be the stats, but I feel like the Monsters are a few pieces away from contending and really upsetting some teams. If they can keep it going, they got to get on their defense, though, if anything, I would say. Monsters really got to get on their defense. The right outside linebacker, Travis Nash, is okay. He's a rookie. He's okay. He's been playing good. Williams, they still got Omar O'Neal, who's a veteran, who's a champion. They just really got to step up on their defense and really get something that works for their defense, because the guys they have are talented, but they got to be in the right scheme. So I think for the Blue Jays, though, the Blue Jays, I don't really know, because I haven't really had a chance to really dive into the Blue Jays. They have a lot of great players. They have Pierre Palmer, who, playing against the RHINOS, didn't do much. I was expecting a better performance with Pierre Palmer, but I just don't think that the offense is set up for him. I think it's all about Archer. Archer is the only player on that team that's going to be able to move the ball for this team. So I would say build a team around Archer, let him thrive, get him some new weapons, and get a great scheme for him, and the Blue Jays have a great chance. They lost a couple of games I think they should have won, but as of right now, I think their stat line is exactly who they are. They have a great offense. It's all from Archer. That's just my opinion. And they still have the first pass offense. So, I mean, the sky's the limit for the Blue Jays. If they can get it together, 500 is not really bad at this time of the season. But I mean, you got to start thinking about something to get yourself into the playoff hunt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you're 500, it's like you can't get the first round pick and you can't win a ship. So you just got to get better in between. You got to pick which way you want to go, buddy. You know what I'm saying? If you want to win, you got to win, start winning now. Or if you want to start thinking about next season, you still want to win games because you want to put good product on the field and you want to represent your team. But I mean, you got to pick a road.
Well, I think everyone plays to win, and I think the Blue Jays are no different. I know the Monsters obviously are not giving up on their season. They're far from it. They could easily make the playoffs here. They're right in the bottleneck at 5-6, just on the outside looking in. But the Blue Jays, they've only had one rookie in 2 seasons, as they've missed 2 drafts. And their one rookie was a free agent pickup. And this free agent pickup might be the best quarterback in the draft, in the season 9 draft. If he was drafted by almost any other team, I don't think he would have got the start. But they started him, and now Mike Archer is leading the league in passing touchdowns. Mike Archer threw 6 passing touchdowns against the RHINOS, which is no joke. They are now 37 touchdowns, which is more than any other quarterback. They have 3,400 passing yards, which is more than any other quarterback. Also, he has a 143 quarterback rating on the season, Mike Archer. He's been playing phenomenal, and of course, Adams, their top receiver, is leading the league in touchdowns and receiving yards as well. They play really good on offense. They can pass the ball like nobody, but they can't run the ball. Very similar to the Wildcats, where the Wildcats can throw the ball really well but can't run it with their life dependent on it. Their defense really struggles, though, but I think that's just lack of game plan and lack of depth chart and lack of attention to detail, as you would say.
That's what it is. Because I would say they have a couple great players in that secondary. Love, Keon Stone, Levine,
for sure.
Jay Bird, Smith. Like, those guys are balling. And I played against them last week, and those guys are no joke, man. They'll get on you.
Yeah. And the Blue Jays with no guidance beat the Rhinos last season. So, and yes, you could say there was a reason why at the end why that happened, but the Blue Jays still put themselves in position to do it. So, the Monsters also, let's talk a little bit about the Monsters here. The Monsters are a great team. I can't believe how well they're doing at such a young age. And I don't mean the owner's age. I mean the franchise's age. They are now officially the two-headed monsters, not the monsters. They're the two-headed monsters with Serge Robertson and Rodney Green, the two different quarterbacks coming in there. That's right. And when they can swap these quarterbacks, and they do it at the right times. They played the Gators and they put the Rodney Green in there, and they won. And I remember talking about it, and he goes, well, Rodney Green used to be a piranha. He knows how to beat the Gators. And when you hear statements like that, it's like this man's paying attention, right? Their defense is also playing really well. They've drafted, finally, for the first time. They got really big guys on their team. They've been getting great free agent pickups. They've been making trades. The Monsters want to win, and they've been proving that they can win. I see them beating the Blue Jays on the road, and they got a tough season ahead of them to try to make it in the playoffs. But I couldn't be more proud of the Monsters' leadership and his due diligence in his game plans, and he'll be a great owner for many seasons to come. Hopefully he can get into the playoffs and maybe upset a top 3 team.
And William Ostrom has been playing great as well. He's almost had 2 weeks of 100-yard games. So that's looking great for that young guy right there. Nobody even knew who William Ostrom is, but now we all do.
That's right. The Monsters. Yeah, so Serge Robertson is 21-7 with 126 quarterback rating and 2,000 yards, and Rodney Green is 10-0. So Rodney Green has not thrown an interception, and it has 127 quarterback rating and 991 yards. So these two guys come in and plug in for each other really well, and they're running like a college team right now, and they're just keeping it fresh. And I think that they were rotating to see who was better, and they just realized that they're both really good. So they've just been putting in the right guy at the right time. Let's move on to the next game, as we're 40 minutes into this supposed short video. And now
I know, right?
Let's talk about, if you guys are still with us, thank you for watching this whole video. Appreciate it, and I hope you're enjoying this video. Now, the big matchup, the Wildcats and the RHINOS. This is a team that is in 3rd place at home, facing a team that is 1st place on the road. The RHINOS have won 2 seasons in a row. First team to ever win 2 championships. First team to win 2 championships back-to-back. First team to win as the first overall seed, which has never been done before. We haven't even seen a first overall seed make the championship game before the RHINOS. Now, in their 3rd season for their quest for 3, they have not slowed down at all. Someone needs to spike the juice of the RHINOS Gatorade, because for some reason these guys don't get hangovers. They are number 1 in the league for points per game, number 1 in the league for turnovers, and that alone is a recipe for huge wins. But they also have the number 1 total offense and the number 1 rushing defense. The Rhinos are officially the bully on the block, and I think that everyone now wants to match up to them and see how their team plays against them when they play. The Wildcats, they have a strong team. They throw the ball really well, very similar to the Blue Jays. They got a really great wide receiving core, and they got a really good quarterback. Their quarterback has only thrown one interception on the season. Pat Hall is 35-1, and that only happened 2 weeks ago, and that is
That's
just
great.
unheard of. The best time we've ever seen something like that was 18-0, and that was from Thomas Brown. And that was the most touchdowns before an interception that we've ever seen before Pat Hall now. But their defense for the Wildcats is very fast, very explosive, and also gets a lot of turnovers. They are tied with third in the league
Right.
for turnovers. They've had multiple games with multiple turnovers, and I believe in their last game they had 3. Both these teams are on a 2-game winning streak. Both these teams are pretty much in the playoffs. I don't want to say for sure. I would say the Rhinos are, but I don't know if the Wildcats technically are at 7 wins. I don't know, because there are teams that are 4-7 that could win out and be 7-7. So I guess the Wildcats could lose out and they would be 7-7 as well. But we'll see with the momentum. The Wildcats have the Rhinos. They have the Vipers. They still got to play. They still got some tough opponents for sure. There's a lot to talk about this game. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah. This is the game that really sets apart teams, because these are 2 strong teams, and the Wildcats are no slouch. They do have a few holes, a few issues that they need to work on, but we know that they're going to figure that out. I think that Pat Hall has everything he needs to succeed. I can't even tell you what's wrong. There is nothing wrong with the Wildcats. They just had some bad breaks. Pat Hall can get it done because his amount of weapons that he has is just disgusting. He's got McGrew, he's got Jackson, he's got a whole bunch of guys on his team that he can pass the ball to. But the thing is with the Wildcats is that they just can't run it. They're not really strong with the run. They have decent running backs, but for some reason they're not hitting the holes. So I think if they can just figure those things out, the Wildcats will be great, because Tim Sparks, Freeman, Robinson, they've all been playing good. Robinson, Sparks got a couple picks against the Tigers last week. So defensively, I think they can step it up, but it's just really just a few holes the Wildcats just have to make addressing either during the season or for next season to really get them back to the powerhouse team that we all know them for. But I mean, for the last couple of games, the Wildcats, I think, have been playing pretty decent, and they're above 500, which is great, because I can't even remember the last time the Wildcats were under 500. So if they can get some of their other pieces in play, like get Timmy Williams in play, their tight end, they can get Gandy in there, they can definitely make a comeback, because their schedule right now is back half a season for every team, so it's going to get tough. But I mean, if the Wildcats really want to make some moves, they got to run that ball, man. They got to find a way to run that ball and keep the offense balanced to give Pat Hall some leeway to make some plays.
That's for sure. All right, we got our last game of the week. Vipers hosting the Tigers. Let's hear your thoughts on this last matchup here.
Tigers. Boy, I tell you, if the Tigers could just get together, man, I think they can be 500 right now with the Monsters and the Wolverines and everybody. I think they can really be a good team. It's just that Nick Moon, I think, needs more space. Give Nick Moon some more wiggle room, you know what I'm saying? Because I think if they have a strong running game to complement the team, they won't have to rely on passing the ball so much. They could definitely use Clay Sharp. I don't think they could find a better quarterback right now. I mean, they got to use what they got. Clay Sharp's a decent, serviceable quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be able to push these guys over the edge. They got their number 1 receiver, Johnson. I think he needs to get paired up with another young, better receiver than the ones they got right now. And the defense. Once again, the defense is just something that they're lacking. Their linebackers are making a couple plays, nothing too big. I mean, Robertson, Thomas, Dotson, All these guys are the normal suspects. They got two Robinsons on their team. One's a linebacker, and they can play. But I just think they just need a couple more holes to fill, just like the Wildcats. One or two or three more holes in the offseason, and I think they can shore this up. Got a couple more defensive players, some more weapons on the offense, wide receivers for Sharp to pass to, and maybe a quarterback. I don't know, but it's really up to the Tigers on how they want to go about this because I mean, let's just face it. The Vipers are a brick wall. I've said it already. I mean, number one in defense for most of all the season.
For sure.
I mean, they were 1-1-1. One total offense, rush defense, total defense, rush defense, and pass defense. That is absolutely bonkers. So, I mean, if any team is going to face the Vipers, I mean, they got to have it all together, just like playing the Demons. You got to play a perfect game. And the Vipers right now, clearly they're going to win this game. If they don't, then there's a real catastrophe happening because the Vipers do not stop. They want to win. They're a very strong team. They're a perennial strong team. They've been one of the strongest teams for a long time. And I just think that the Vipers have what it takes to win every game, every time. It's just that, they've got a couple bad breaks, and I don't really know what the situation is. But, I mean, I think the Vipers should have a better record than they do right now. But, I mean, who's going to bet against the Vipers? I mean, they got some of the best linebackers in the league. They got weapons in their offense. They got a great young quarterback who's trying to prove himself. I mean, 8-4, that's what I think is going to happen.
All right, well, we'll talk about the Vipers a little bit. And let me correct you there. Their quarterback is definitely proven. They're definitely got a proven quarterback with Corey Moore, who is going to 4 championships in 9 seasons now. Corey Moore needs to win the big one. I think that if the Vipers do anything but not win the championship, it's a fail. I think that the Vipers are focused only on winning the ship, and anything else doesn't matter. That's their mentality. The Vipers are an amazing team, and again, an amazing owner, and very similar to the Dragons, as they are flying under the radar, very low, and not a lot of people are talking about them. No one talks about the Dragons. Some people do mention the Vipers, and it's usually only when they play them. They go, oh yeah, the Vipers. And these guys really kick ass. No one talks about the Vipers enough this season, especially not in Season 9, as, the Gators, RHINOS, Demons. These guys have been taking up a lot of the spotlights and the matchups. But also, I find that's because the Vipers are not a very vocal owner. He's not going to rub it in people's faces. He's not going to bring up stats. He doesn't really talk too much in the chat. He does. I'm not saying he doesn't, but he's one of those people that people don't realize how good he is until they play him. The Vipers are a very strong team, very methodical team. Their issue this year, if any, is their running game has not been as phenomenal as it usually is. Gary Mason is usually a top 3 running back, and this season he's been about top 6. And
that just goes to show you how good he is because they're still 7th.
And they're still 7th, right? They lost one game against the Blue Jays, which in my opinion was an upset. And if that was the case, they'd have the same record as the Demons right now. They're right there with some of the best of the best. They don't lose. The thing is about the Vipers is they lose to the teams they're not supposed to, and they beat the big teams, right? Like they crushed the Demons in Week 1, and I know it was Beer League Francis that they played, but they really shoved that beer can down his throat. And the Vipers, they haven't looked back since. No one's talking about them enough. And they're gonna come in and they're gonna punch someone in the mouth, and if not, they're gonna take someone down with them. And I fear anybody that matches this team in the playoffs. No one wants to play this team, not in the regular season and not in the playoffs. The Vipers are the real deal. Tigers. The Tigers are the epitome of what the difference is between the Monsters and Tigers. Okay, they came in at the same time, and they couldn't be more opposite. The Tigers missed their first round draft pick. They made bad draft picks when they did. They made bad free agent pickups. They didn't make any real trades or try to do anything on, to try to increase their team, didn't try to lay anything out. They don't put in great game plans, if not any at all. The Tigers really need to get their stuff together if they plan on competing in this league. Now that they are 2-9, it's over for the Tigers for the S9. And now they are on a new race for the number 1 overall pick. Now they're competing against the Scorpions. They play the Scorpions next week after they're going to get their hat handed to them by the Vipers, and then they got to take their broken bones and now go face another team in the Scorpions in a game that nobody wants to win. And that
Right.
will be...
And I think that when you have Nick Moon, your running back, when he's your number 1 receiver for the game, and he's catching balls out the backfield, and you have Givens, Johnson, and a whole bunch of receivers back there, I don't think that's a recipe for success.
The Tigers are in trouble, and they need a lot of pieces, and they need to make a lot better decisions, and they need to pay attention to the details. This has been a Season 9 breakdown of the entire season and of every team, and now it's been 50 minutes, so I'm going to call it. It's been a great video. We talked about every team intensively, and I hope you enjoyed it if you got this far. Any last words, RHINOS?
Yeah, thanks everybody. If you got this far, appreciate it. This is your league. This is our league. You got to get it and keep it together. Shout out to Billy Beer League Francis, the best nickname in the league. And we out of here, man.
Peace.
Go Horns.